Did you die?
No, trying to figure something out. When I figure
I,
something out, add something in.
I hope you didn't die.
Gotta find some music that YouTube won't copyright me for. Oh, come on, that's not what I want to be playing. And welcome back to this week's podcast, Anime4All. We are reviewing this week, specifically Shaman King episodes 7 and 8. Episode 7 and 8 of Shaman King. We'll be returning back next week to My Hero because apparently July 10th is the new episode coming out. Just I update everybody on that, especially Jocks, because he's probably wondering when it's going to come back.
My name isn't pluralized. Did you just say Jocks?
Jock, sorry.
Oh my gosh, Jocks. How many
Does
of
your
them?
name have an S in it? Why is it? Never mind. I'm not gonna get into.
My name has a silent Q-U-E-S. Basically, all the pronunciation is J-A-C. Jacques.
That was a mispronunciation. My bad. Calm down.
Oh my gosh, how long have you known me and you still can't pronounce my name?
Moving on, because I'm digging myself a hole here. But with that, not much going on in the analytics for this podcast. Still grateful that people are watching. We're still hanging on those 3 followers we got. So I guess without further ado, we're gonna jump into episode 7 of Shaman King.
National Bikini Day is trending on Twitter, but I haven't seen a single picture of Froppy yet.
Give it a minute. I mean, if we get famous enough, you can force anybody. Well, not force. Suggest anybody. Suggest that to anybody, and I'll probably get you some fan art. But
would she need it? Being a frog, would she need a bikini? Can she swim in salt water?
I mean, she's a humanoid frog.
If she can't get cold because frogs can't get cold, then she shouldn't be able to swim in salt water either. But we saw her swim in it, right? In that episode with where she was doing her internship.
No, I don't think she touched the water.
Oh, she didn't?
I don't think she did.
That must be kind of scary, though, if you're a frog and you can't touch the water and you're surrounded by it. Seems kind of compromising.
I mean, her temperature just can't drop, is what she specifically said. I don't think salt water would drop her temperature that fast or that badly. We're not talking about My Hero, we're talking about Shaman King.
If she went up against Icy High, he would just make her cold and she'd be out. That's a pretty big weakness.
I mean, only people would only, but that, as long as she doesn't go against people who have the ability to lower her temperature, she should be fine.
If you say so. I mean, you're right. There's very few cold quirks and like just billions and billions of hot quirks. So like fire quirks are everywhere, but cold quirks, there's only like the 1 or 2. I thought we were going to talk about Shaman King.
You're the one that brought Froppy fan art. Well, not Froppy fan art. We brought up Froppy. I was trying to bring us back on the rail, and you freaking derailed us and kept derailing us.
Would you please get us back online, please?
I've already muted Jock, so here we go. Episode 7 of My Hero. Shaman King. I think to bring us, because we haven't reviewed this in 3 weeks. Yeah, 3 weeks sounds right. We're coming off the win of Yo and against Hero, I believe, is we're coming off of. Wait, is that the last fight he had? I think that was the last fight he had. And we get a warning that Yo should not fight the next person. His name is Faust, and they warn us saying that someone his last fight got killed. So that's the thing. We come back and Anna is having a conversation in a dinner. Looks like with Yo's coach. I guess the best way to put him, his Native American coach. Um, we also learn, we're learning more and more about this world, and we're also learning about necromancy in this episode, specifically because it has a lot to do with Faust. And if anybody's probably wondering exactly that why that sounds familiar, there is a very rooted, buried in history. There's in Germany, there's a guy whose last name was Faust. I forgot his. I think it's John George Faust. I think is what his name is. They actually reference him here in the episode too, but we'll get to that in a minute.
You're talking about who he originally was?
Well, not who he originally was, but I mean, there was a person in real life by that name. Um, and they both are in the anime and in real life both are alchemists. I think they mentioned that he also dealt with in real life. He also was a magician. I don't know. It was very
It's
apparently.
Johann Georg Faust is the original, but this one is more linked to the fictional Faust because he's also like he's more of a legend than like a historical character. It's kind of like Robin Hood. Robin Hood was probably a real person, but he's only tangentially related to the legend. Um, the one that we're looking at here is more like Christopher Marlowe's Faust, who sold his soul to the devil.
So I feel like you're cheating with all this English teacher knowledge you got in the background, but we're gonna move on. Ah dear. See here, back to the episode. Well,
Well,
after
it's just
that
really
whole.
cool because like Faust. I immediately connected to Faust because of my DC knowledge, because there's a really powerful wizard in the DC universe called Felix Faust, and he was like really really powerful. So I was like, that's interesting that like there's two powerful wizard characters, or kind of like supernatural power wielding characters that are related to Faust, because the other Faust was also necromantic, and from the DC character. So I was curious if there was a connection between him and that one. And then I looked up Faust, and I found out he's sort of like a legendary character in history. And there was a real person, like a German legend, was based on a real person in the same way that Robin Hood was like probably a real person, but like the legend is different. Or like if there was a real King Arthur, like the one that you read about in the stories is like really really different than an actual King Arthur. But the other thing I was wondering is because when he first came on and they were talking about someone that had like raised hell in the past, and then he showed up with blue eyes and blonde hair, I thought at first that they were implying that it was like a Hitler youth. You know what I mean? Like a child of Hitler or something like that. Because he and his love were like both pure blue eyes, blonde hair, which is like the Aryan race that Hitler was trying to push forward. But Faust is like such a popular like myth that if you say Faustian, like that's a word that means sacrificing someone that sacrifices their spiritual values for power, knowledge, or material gain, which I thought was really cool. So I don't know. I thought it was really cool that like, and ironically, he was the subject of a lot of puppet plays too. And I thought that was an interesting connection because he gets really ticked off when Yo calls what he's doing like a game, and he also references her as a puppet. So you know what I mean. Playing games with puppets and a puppet play were kind of like an interesting little connection there. I don't know like how much of that is lost in translation or not, but I think that was really cool. But yeah, in the myth, like he sells his soul to the devil for additional power. But it would make sense, you know what I mean. The reason I think it's more a reference to Christopher Marlowe's version is because the story that Christopher Marlowe put together was Dr. Faustus, as opposed and the deserved death of Dr. Faustus, which is Dr. John Faustus, which is a little bit different than the original person, and also a little bit different than because the original person was an alchemist, astrologer, and magician. So it kind of fits that a little bit, but the other doctor is like literally a doctor. So I think that they were kind of playing into the literary Faust as opposed to the legendary or the actual person. But they all fall in about the same period based on how many hundreds of years ago they mentioned in the episode that we're talking about.
What happened? Sorry, what?
Which part?
Sorry, no, I'm kidding. I was listening. I was listening. I mean,
I hate you.
very weird that you got on and I'm the one take talking, so that was nice. I'm glad you adding in that information that I didn't know. But I mean, there is some correlation. But see here, because I was looking through while you were talking, seeing, because it seemed like what you were saying was going along the lines. They do bring up Germany in general. Yeah, that makes you think of Hitler. There's a descendant of Hitler. Which, granted, there are descendants living descendants of Hitler to this day who aren't like that man, which is funny to believe. But I honestly could not be. I don't even think they have like. Yeah, I think they got rid of the last name Hitler too because of it. But the coach brings up well, Silva brings up that is a man with blood and madness. He's just scaring Anna here, saying that he should not be trying to fight this dude because of essentially it's the whole theme that that this game or this tournament is serious, and some shamans are going to kill their shamans regardless of what the rules state that you can and should not do. Um, can I? Okay, before we get copyrighted again, come on, move group. Why is Guru Hamada on here? Seriously? Okay, but back to what I was saying. Um, they talk about all this. Yo and Yamada are waiting in the cemetery, which I guess another historical thing is here they're waiting in the cemetery because it's going to be Faust's battlefield that that's gonna be beneficial to him, which is really weird that they're playing to the opponent's strength versus playing with Yo's strength. But they bring up an interesting thing about that cemetery that they're in is that Yo brings up the fact that it's so weird that all these graves are stacked with next to each other like this. I guess apparently in Japan, or at least in the East, they don't do cemeteries like this, but over here in the West we do. And I think it brings up that I don't know exactly what happened, but it sounds like it might have been the war between America and Japan about Pearl Harbor, maybe. Granted, it's the 150 years. No, that's too young. So never mind. It's definitely not the Pearl Harbor War. I don't know what war they're referring to that happened 150 years ago, and from this time period. But a lot of American people died, and as to way to commemorate their lives, they sanctioned off a piece of land and just put their graves next to each other like this. So there's a lot of like corpses and whatnot um,
It's
underground.
interesting that this probably plays into the landscape of Japan. The in Japan, like golf is very popular in Japan, but land is so in demand in Japan because most of it is mountainous, and it's not a lot of land to begin with. That it's actually cheaper to fly to the United States to play golf and then go back than it is to like play golf in Japan. So to have like graveyards like we have in the United States, where we have a lot of flat land and stuff like that, a lot of non-mountainous regions, is a completely different concept than it would be in Japan, where graveyards would be extremely expensive because like land in Japan is like very very in demand.
Actually, now
So,
another interesting thing here, as I was going through while you're talking, sorry, but they bring up an interesting thing that I guess apparently cremating a body is common. Apparently here they've just buried all the dead bodies of the Americans that came to their land, which is intriguing. Because Yo was confused at why as they were buried, because apparently I guess he didn't realize that you could also bury a dead body, but sure why not. Granted, we found out later these are all skeletons that are underneath there, so they've been dead for a long while. Granted, some of those bones should have been like more decayed than they were, but whatever. Um,
well, you seem to be able to reform them if they got damaged, so there might be a certain level of reforming that he could even do to a decaying body. I mean, you saw that like his love, he was able to take from a skeleton and bring all the way to like a human form.
but I think he said, I mean, from the way they made it sound like he still had her body somewhere. But I guess before we get too ahead of ourselves, um, yeah, you see here gonna get his full name here real quick because he's the necromancer that Yo's gonna be fighting this entire episode. What's his name? No, his last name is Faust. What's his first name? Crap, they don't give him his first name. I would like to point out his Faust the Eighth. Wait, or is it Faust the? V is 5 in Roman.
Yeah, it's Faust the Eighth.
Okay, Faust the Eighth. So they don't give his first. They don't give his last name, or even if that's his last. Even though in Japan, at least in the East, they usually speak with their first name first. But I'm not gonna dive into that. I guess as well as the intro explained.
I have a weird question for you. You were talking about how it seems like it would be the war in Pearl Harbor.
I backed out of it. I don't think it's the war on Pearl Harbor. It's some other war that could have happened.
It's interesting because the historical Jonathan Faust was 1480 to 1540, and they said that it was his father from 500 years ago, which could make it, give or take, it could make it 2020, but it could also make it 2040. That's still only 100 years back, but it is weird that they're saying that. Is it possible that this show is set a little ways in the future?
No, this show is set much earlier than it, because the show came out in 2000s, and I'm pretty sure they're still in the 2000s here. There's no
I'm
way
not saying that. Is this show necessarily in the present time, or is it possible that the show takes place a little bit in the future?
No, it's in present time.
Okay. How do you know
that? There's not enough. You can tell with architecture, there's not enough. Japan in this anime is nowhere near the level of technology that it would need to be if it was placed in 2020. Because I've seen other anime. There's another anime. I hate to bring other anime into this, but just to give a comparison, I'm not sure if I can even compare these two, but it's the most I can think of right now. There's a show called A Certain Scientific Railgun, and there's basically psychics in that show. But what I want to bring attention to, some people probably would know what I'm talking about here, is that there are a lot of skyscrapers and stuff like that, and even magnet trains. As far as I can tell, based on what I remember about when the show would have been made, another stereotype, not stereotype, but another trope that they would have been using is a lot of places are within walking distance. They wouldn't necessarily need to use a train. Now, I'm not saying there's no trains here, but it's not as there's way more nature here than there would normally be in a place that possibly is very industrialized. Now, granted, we've seen the city several episodes before, so I'm certain that it can be, because they were way more. Things have been more futuristic, in my opinion. There would have been way more magnet trains. There were way more cars than that we've seen. It'd be ridiculous, because when it comes to anime, Japan likes to place Tokyo and everything like that so far ahead of technology. Granted they are, but at the same time, it's they like to display this a little bit differently. Here, it's for crying out loud, Yamada's going to cram school when the series starts. You don't hear that word you don't hear that word nowadays. You just don't. And I remember specifically that that was used a lot in anime back when this would have been new. So there's a lot of things that they're purposely using that I don't think they changed on purpose.
I don't think that there was any. I'm Googling right now. I can't find a single battle where U.S. soldiers die in Japan that's not World War II.
Well, that's not Pearl Harbor, right? That's just the World War II that happened.
Pearl Harbor is World War II. Pearl Harbor is when the U.S. joined World War II. Before that, they didn't want us. U.S. was really reluctant to join World War II, and it didn't join for
what year?
a long time.
What year was
1942.
150 years in the future. I'd put that.
Japan was on the side of Hitler in the World War II. They were allies, and China was one of our allies.
That's funny, but let's see. 1940 with 150 years would place that in
There's no other. So for it to be 150 years ago, it would have to be 2090. And then another reference that might support that is that Manta's father owns a company that is involved in energy research, which would be another like technological reference. The ante to this would be like the hospital where he's sitting in there and they have like a tea kettle and the plane that looks very like modern that's flying overhead, but it would
According
be
to
kind of.
this, the Shaman fight that's happening, Shaman King, is happening in 2000.
How do you know that?
I looked it up.
Okay. I was afraid to look anything up for spoilers. Then
But that
I'll
wasn't a
back off of
spoiler. I
that.
mean, I don't think they were going to reveal whatever year, because I think in any anime they go with the year 20XX anyway.
I
Just to,
think they still have to go with. I think that it's just a mistranslation or an inaccuracy in the like a plot hole in the narrative. Then because the only time, unless they reveal something more in the future, the only time U.S.
well,
soldiers
another
have
thing
died.
I want to also say is that we're basing this off like this world that they're in is Earth, that at least our Earth, and events happen the same way that they happen here. I'm pretty sure that's probably not the case because like based on all the knowledge prior, they make a big deal that shamans have been around for a long time, and I don't even think I know there are people who practice shamans, but I don't think there are as many shamans today as they appear to be here. So like the world is a fictitious representation anyway, and they probably took a lot of liberties. Whatever war happened, because they don't even specifically state what war that was. Yama just brings up the fact that Americans came over and died in the war. He doesn't even call it a like whatever war it was.
Right.
I think we're just taking too much stock into it. This isn't, as far as I'm aware, Shaman King is not an offshoot of our world like My Hero is. Um, so I think it's another thing too. And another thing too, this show does like I mean shows like this stereotypically don't they just they don't give a year. They just go with 20XX saying okay it's happening within somewhere for our time period. I'm pretty sure like whatever it is. I think the small details don't really truly matter because they're not gonna come up. Yeah, I don't think
Mhm.
they will in the future. That war didn't seem like it was that important. I mean, Yamada just kind of mentioned it in passing that it happened, and he was just explaining to Yo that this is the ending result. Um, I guess talking about Faust, it's kind of weird when he first shows up. They make Faust sound like such a dick. Fun later on that is the truth. But when he first shows up, he comes off really nice and polite. It's actually really it's kind of jarring when you see what he's really like. But yeah, he comes off as a nice dude. He has the blonde hair and the blue eyes. He's also got the bags under his eyes too, as he doesn't sleep. These are the
Mhm.
sunless. He doesn't sleep. But one thing of that Yo is like as he's talking with Faust, Amira shows up saying that he's reeking of death. Uh, the moment he says that, the things change really fast. He also mentioned he used to be a doctor. I don't know if that's a translation or not, but I'm gonna go off the fact he's not a doctor anymore because he is a necromancer or a necromantic shaman. Um, I guess you could compare him to a plague doctor too, but he doesn't have the mask that the plague doctors have.
Um,
He goes on his own spiel about like how hateful death is and like why humans are born to die. And, like it's just he's going on his like whole philosophy thing. You can definitely see that death has affected him in some way up to this point. You don't know how, but death has affected him profoundly, in a
mhm.
negative way. And Yamada brings up Faust the Eighth as a genius scholar who descended of Faust. He's the descendant of Faust. They bring up an image of who this exactly 500 years ago he took part in the shaman fight, but he was overconfident and he did tore apart the very demon he summoned.
Yeah, he overestimated his control over the demon. So I think the carefree like I thought you'd be scary kind of stuff was just to keep him off balance because he's heavily messing with him in the beginning when he kidnaps Manta and he takes on Faust and everything else. I think he's just basically
Here's the
he's trying to throw him off guard, like which is a really good strategy against somebody like Yo, because his strength is in his like personal serenity, and like he throws him off there, and then like he's kind of like off balance, and then he starts um
so here's the
he
part
starts operating on Manta, and that, you know, which is his first and only friend, and that throws him off.
before we get to that, my question is his oversoul. I couldn't tell what it was unless it was the skeletons moving about.
Mm-hmm.
And they bring up at the end of the like how he wins the fight. Spoilers, like Yo loses, but they bring up the fact the only reason that Yo lost is because Yo couldn't keep his oversoul. But Faust did, and I couldn't tell what his freaking oversoul was unless it was the skeletons.
It seemed to be Eliza.
No, but she wasn't out.
She was what?
She wasn't out during the operation. I don't think she is. I mean, I can't tell. There's a lot. All the skeletons look the same.
I don't know. He seemed like he was maybe a completely different type of shaman, so I wonder if the rules are different for him. Like, he didn't have to keep his oversoul; he just needed to have his power.
No,
not
because
run
the fight he loses the fight if his oversoul just gets depleted. That's the role. That's what every shaman has to. That's what every shaman has to abide by.
Oh, well, that's interesting. Then I don't know who was oversoul. I was assuming it was Eliza, but now that you say that I'm not as sure.
That's what every shaman has to do because that's what that whole watch thing is for. Is keeping the watch on their Furikuri or their shaman energy.
Mm-hmm.
But just because he's a necromantic, just because he's a necromancer does not mean that he, because his abilities are based on how much power he has too. I just don't know what. I mean, I'm guessing his oversoul has to be the skeletons then. I mean, they also bring the fact that like he might have. No, she was out because she's the one holding the scythe. Well, not the scythe, but the that butcher knife that he had. She was out, alright. Yeah, she was out. So it must have been her then. But what are the skeletons then? Like, I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense to me.
And now it doesn't make any sense to me.
The other skeletons, I feel like, I mean, they bring up the fact, as you said before, as I cut you off there. He was trying to keep Yo off guard. He messed with Manta because he wanted to make sure Yo was in his anger as he was attacking him. And another thing, we also see the first time Yo get really angry, gets sincerely angry with somebody. Normally he's very carefree. He doesn't care. He doesn't ever spout his emotions. He doesn't typically attack without, well, I mean, semi plan. I mean, he's very carefree. You know, his catchphrase is everything will work out. Normally, he acts very Ren Tao like here, but without the bloodlust.
What's that mean?
Like, Yo doesn't want to kill. He just wants to protect his friend. He's trying to win this fight. Like he's being really aggressive. Something that Yo is not up to this point not known to do. Yo never acts on emotion too much. He usually has to keep his cool. And they bring that up here, and also they bring up the reason why he's acting like this because Manta, as you brought up earlier, is his first and only human friend he's ever had. Mainly because nobody wants to be friends with a guy who talks to dead people.
Well, if I can talk for a long time for a second,
oh dear.
There's been a pattern that's been building up in every single episode so far of he comes in the beginning and he's not attached to anything. He's completely carefree. He seems like he's kind of a nomad, wandering from place to place, doesn't know anybody, doesn't care. And he makes his first friend, and then he has his first wife show up. And then he gets a ghost guardian that's like attached to him that he becomes friends with and goes everywhere he goes. And then he ends up in a house, so he's like less of a wanderer. And then he gets a rival, you know, either Ren and Oversoul Basin or like kind of Faust because he got beaten by Faust. So he has like these kind of rivals now. And he has good reasons to become Shaman King, you know, and has good reasons specifically not to let Faust become Shaman King, and he wants to be Shaman King, which is different than good reasons. Like he actually is like, I'm going to be Shaman King, because I want to be Shaman King, along with the reasons. Um, and like these are giving him like all these different things are giving him kind of weaknesses right now, and they're kind of like attacking at his root, which is his serenity, that he walks around like kind of lazy with a pot shirt on, listening to music and kind of like being a slacker that is just so good that he can afford to be a slacker. Suddenly he's coming across all these people that are in his league, and he's starting to have all these things that have like motivated him to keep going, and you know what I mean, to push himself and actually get out of his comfort zone. And then he meets somebody right off the bat who is the type of person that plays on that specific weakness, and he's like uprooted his serenity and messed with him and played on his emotions and hit on weaknesses he didn't realize he had because these are all new for him. And he's never like learned how to manage like feelings like this because he's never been really attached to anything. So it was a really good character growth moment for this to happen when it did, because like not only is it playing on a weakness, but it's playing on a weakness that like the writers of the story probably want you to spend some time thinking about, you know what I mean, which is like who he is evolving and changing as all this happens. So I really like that they built that up. But it's been more of a build up than just this episode, and it's much more of a build up than just Manta. He's actually like every single episode he's picked up a few people that he's either protecting or he's teaming up with, you know what I mean, or partnering with or whatever. Even people like Ryu, you know what I mean, is like still somebody that like he's kind of taken under his wing a little bit, because the guy shows up and he's like, now I have superpowers and I've never seen them before and I can see ghosts and stuff like that. And now he's kind of like, oh, well, come on in then. I guess you're one of us now, And he's not just this person that's completely untethered anymore. He's got a reason to become more than he is, and he's got a reason to protect things, but it also means that he's got a purpose that makes him vulnerable in a way that he wasn't, so he's got to become stronger to compensate for that.
I understand that, but I mean, Anna just didn't show up in his life. I mean, Anna was always there. I mean, for crying out loud, she was already set up to be his wife to begin with, long time ago before all this happened. Now,
She was, but for us, she's brought on the scene now. She's here, and she wasn't here. And even with Anna, he seems like he's like, oh, you know what I mean? But now he seems like he's slowly... I sense a plot line where he's like being shown to be more and more attached to her, especially in the next episode when like a potential rival lover comes in. You see all of a sudden how well established Anna is as his like core relationship, as opposed to somebody else that just wants him just as much but isn't quite the fit that Anna is.
yeah, I understand. I guess before I move on from Yo's character, let's see, what was I gonna say here? But I mean, yeah, we saw a lot of parts of Yo as a character that we didn't see before, or didn't know about. I will say it plays on more of a sympathetic, at least from the way I'm gonna look at it, is like Yo, like you couldn't really sympathize with Yo because Yo was a slacker, and I mean, not that he was a bad guy. We saw that he's a decent dude. He just wants to live a decent life, which everybody wants to. That's nothing to laugh at or even poke fun at. But you also learn that growing up, being a kid who can see spirits was not easy, which makes a lot of sense because kids can be cruel, and it's one of those small things you don't think about until they bring it up in the show that he had a rough growing up, and because of that he became detached because he didn't want to feel anything or deal with the emotions that came attached to being ostracized.
Mm-hmm.
Being the fact that they bring later on that Yo lives in a very big house of people of shamans, but he's one of the last remaining shamans that are still active. From the way
Yeah,
they
and at
put
one
it,
point there was 171, I think it said.
so like Yo had a rough upbringing. He didn't want to be a shaman. He didn't want to be Shaman King. He was forced into this life, only to later on come to terms with that he wants to be Shaman King because he wants to run his own life. He wants to do what he wants to do just for the sake of doing it. So like when people in his life, as you said before, that came into his life of their own free will, that when they get hurt, he feels that he's responsible for them getting hurt, which we see later on. But I guess back to before we get into that, the entire fight essentially concludes with Faust winning, but it's mainly because Faust had the upper hand, being wiser with his energy and being a tiny bit smarter. Making sure that Yo was constantly off balance because Yo the entire fight was very emotional, something that he hadn't shown for E. He hadn't shown this side of him in probably ever, and because of his lack of attachment, he never had this side shown. So when this comes up, I mean, everybody's wondering what's going on. I mean, Yamada, he's over there on the ground with a T-shirt surrounding his open stomach. Poor dude, that kid has gone through a lot, and he only just wanted to have a friend. Like that is also weird. But I guess we'll see what happens to Yamada in the future because it seems like he's getting more of a prominent role here. The fact that he's even here is one of the tipping points for Yo's anger. It kind of shows how important he is. But you talk about like just how people like them are I mean it's kind of like being a witch back in the day. Like you would be considered a demon because no one understood what you could do or why you could do the things you were able to do.
Yeah, and I get the feeling that the word shaman isn't written in stone anyway. I like the Native American guy is kind of a shaman, but then they have other names that they've kind of dropped for what these people do. Necromancer and what was it, witch or demon or something like that other people mistook them for. So it sounds like shaman might be the true name, but it sounds like depends on where you go what people are actually using as the name.
I mean, I think what it comes down to is what your abilities do with the spirits. Because Yo uses a dead spirit. He doesn't use a physical body, like Ren's sister did. She used a puppet with a talisman, which is common, I think, over there in that eastern part. Anyway, for evil spirits.
Right, and his grandfather was using leaves and like transforming them to spirits.
He was using Shikigami is what their official term is, Shikigami. But yeah, they're leaf spirits. But funny enough, they didn't show us what they look like, even though they're technically supposed to show us what they look like because they're like little people with leaves above their head. It actually looked really funny and cute, but I mean, hey, I guess they didn't want to show us that part for whatever reason. But
it's not just that; it's like the way they're perceived.
I mean, I think the shaman. Hold on, let me just see what the general term shaman is, just so we have that to go off of.
No, I'm not saying that they're using the correct term or incorrect term. It's just I think that like this role of being a shaman has been like embedded in a lot of myth and like real and fictional spirituality and legends and things like that. It goes back a long ways, obviously, since there's people that were doing it 500 years ago. And I just think that there's, in this universe, which is becoming increasingly well thought out, it seems like there are just a lot of truths and half-truths and mistruths about what goes on here that like define how they're perceived, which is why sometimes they're seen as evil, sometimes they're seen as good. Even Yo himself, like at the beginning of this, thought that a shaman was incapable of evil, which is obviously not true, because we've seen plenty of fairly evil shamans. So, as a matter of fact, I'd say it's about 50-50 so far. So, even he is like misinformed about what a shaman is. Like, it seems to be something that like they're gonna have to learn along the way.
I don't think Yo is misinformed. I think Yo is just naive. Because basically, what he was saying wasn't a truth. What he was saying is what he believed. Because he was told that if a person could speak with spirits, they're not a bad guy. And so far,
the only that's what I mean. Like the hearsay, like the folk knowledge that he picked up is that they're all good. But he grew up in like a center for this kind of stuff. You know what I mean? It should have been full of information about good and evil ones and stuff like that. And he came out of that thinking, oh, they're all good. You know what I mean? And believing in the goodness in everybody. And I think he can't believe in that so much now.
I know. I feel like a lot of this has to do with the fact that he was alone most of his life. Anyway, I feel like they bring that up that has something to do. A lot of what makes him Yo is a lot of that. Why he came out of the whole concept with thinking that no shaman could be evil. But so far, the only person that we know of that's evil is truly an evil shaman. Well, I mean, besides Faust himself here, because this guy's a dick. But but is Ren at this point, the guy who nearly killed him. As it's going on now, Faust is now putting all his energy and strength into manifesting his wife. We find out who I originally thought was his sister, but apparently he's his wife. I don't know if that was a censorship thing or something else entirely. All I know is this man's is a necrophilia. Moving on, but they also bring the fact that like the reason why he can do this too, and why Yo isn't capable of defending, is he had been spreading his summoning energy throughout the fight, only using the minimum that it was necessary to have the skeletons walk about. Now he's forcing all the energy into his, I guess, oversoul, which is his wife, who has this giant blade that is ridiculously powerful. Only because Yo can't defend himself with the oversoul that he has, because it's very. But at this point in the fight, Yo's oversoul is just on the hilt of his blade. It's nowhere else. Normally, it's a giant orb of energy that is encapsulating his arm, and you see Amidamaru's face on it. But it's quite clear by this point of the fight that Faust has got the upper hand, and Yo is still determined to defeat Faust, like the anime pro tag that he is. This is where he brings up and starts messing with Faust's brain or his emotional state, saying that he doesn't like playing he's done with playing with dolls, which in reality is kind of what she is, because she doesn't have, from what I can understand, when they talked about her, she doesn't have her soul.
You know what drove me nuts?
What?
I looked up Eliza. Like I looked up so many characters trying to figure out who Eliza might be, because the only Eliza that I remembered was Eliza Bennett, which is from Pride and Prejudice. But there's like almost no Eliza from anything that like might fit at all. Like the closest I could get was that Eliza was the mother of Tom in the book Uncle Tom's Cabin, and she was a slave. And I'm like, well, this character is kind of a slave, and Eliza from Uncle Tom's Cabin is kind of a slave. But that just doesn't feel like a perfect fit. And Eliza Bennett definitely doesn't feel like a good fit, because she was like full of life and comical and hard to get romantically, and like sarcastic, and just not like the perfect little like angel that meant. The name Eliza means joy, which is cool because, you know what I mean, that kind of fits there. But that's like really like all I got. Like there's nobody for a character that's so like embedded in like mythology and, you know what I mean, in legends and literature and stuff like that. It was just weird for like the name Eliza either means joyful or my God is an oath, and the only like the closest literary character to connect to it is a slave. So it's not like it doesn't completely not fit, except that slave would have been about 200 years ago. It just doesn't work, you know.
I mean, I think the closer I think you're looking into it. I don't think typically anime. Well, they'll take a name or something like that, and they'll make, because there's no like real proof of a person like this existing. And I'm pretty sure this means joy because she was joyful and full of energy when she was alive. She is no longer that anymore because her soul is no longer in that body, from what I can gather.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he brought her back to life. All he was able to do was put together this body, and that's why he's so upset when Yo calls her a doll.
The only other thing I could think of, and you can tell me what you think about this, is that there was when I was in college, I took some courses on Shakespeare, like studied specifically Shakespeare, and it was thought for a long time, and it's still like one of the biggest standing like theories about the identity of Shakespeare is, and this one's not as well kept, but it's very persistent. Like a lot of people really believe in this, is that Shakespeare didn't exist, and that it was the pen name of Queen Elizabeth, who wouldn't have been allowed to write, you know what I mean, because she was a woman at the time, but that actually Shakespeare was a woman named Elizabeth, which is shortened to Eliza. And the connection there would be that Faust appeared in a lot of plays. You know, the character Faust, like the more popular depictions of him are very often in plays and things like that. So it could have been like a really, really loose connection that way, but then you lose a lot, you know. But Goth was like one of the most popular writers of the Legend of Faust wrote it as a play, and the play is called Faust, written by the German author Johann, like being the name of that guy, Wolfgang von Goethe. So I don't know. And in that case, it was published. It was published in 1808 and 1832. In 1832, lines up fairly well with Uncle Tom's Cabin, which was like 1840. So in that case, like then you know what I mean. You have that double entendre of it being an Uncle Tom, and also Queen Elizabeth being Shakespeare. But that just it feels like a big stretch. But I just really couldn't find any other better connections to the inside joke that I feel like is really there by the fact that they gave her like that clear name and everything else and went on and on about her.
I don't think she really exists or she's meant to be anything other than the embodiment of that name. But as I said before, she's lacking the joy that that name means.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that a lot of times names mean more than them actually taking a character from real life. Because I mean, they could have went with Hitler here and used one of Hitler's like many fiancées as a doll here, but they decided to go with something else entirely. So
Like I said, then you have the literal meanings, the historical meanings. You know what I mean, which do kind of fit in that sense. But if there's anyone listening to this podcast that has a theory or has something better than I do about this, I'd love to hear about it. Like if you have a way to leave a comment or anything like that, like please give me some ideas because this was really
Twitter,
bugging
the
me.
Game Hunter 09 is the best way to leave comments and get in contact with me. I will definitely leave. I'll definitely let Jock know if anything does come through. That's
We'll
the best
talk
way.
about that in the next podcast if someone really does come up with a really cool theory.
I mean, if we talk about Shaman King next week, I don't think we will because it's gonna be my hero next week. But we'll see. I
Well,
won't.
a podcast. You know what I mean? The next time it comes up, we'll bring it up and discuss it.
Yeah, that wouldn't be bad. Um,
I don't think anyone else like online has ever researched this, so I feel like this is the only way we're going to get anything is if someone shares their theories because I kind of exhausted myself on it. I feel like maybe you need to be more familiar with exactly what's going on with Faust because I didn't know that much to begin with. But I think it's a really interesting thing to explore. Maybe it's just nerdy me, but I think it's
well, I
cool.
mean, Faust was very hard to research. Period. I couldn't find anything just typing his name in because either he wasn't real or either he was based. The character is based off a real life person who shared his last name, who also was an alchemist. It's very freaking. They even bring up him being a magician. There's a lot of stuff about that isn't clear. But
Mm-hmm.
I will say that this character Faust is very creepy. With any anime that has a Faust involved, typically he is. He's probably the less creepy. He's probably the least creepy version of a fictional character I've actually seen. Cause I've seen worse.
Oh, wait a minute. The Faust lost his soul by making a deal with the devil, and Eliza's name means God's oath. So it's sort of like a yin and yang thing, which is yin and yang is a big theme in the next episode too. So you have God's oath and a deal with the devil like existing together.
I guess that makes sense considering how much he views how beautiful she is. It definitely doesn't like her being called a doll.
Yeah, my God is
She's
an oath
very
and a deal with
lifeless there. Jeez.
yeah, my God is an oath and a deal with the devil. That makes sense to me, especially if the other meaning is joyful. I'm going with that. That's got to be it because yin and yang and like opposites being connected to each other is a really strong theme in this series anyway. So I'm gonna go with that. Like the true meaning of it, my God is an oath, and then a deal with the devil. Like best known for with a character that's best known for making a deal with the devil.
It's an interesting line before I move on here that Leo says after Eliza jumps at him for the second time. He says it's because life is limited that there is happiness and sadness. Like he's exhibiting yin and yang within himself, trying to become Shaman King to bring his wife back. Which is
And he's
interesting.
saying that if you didn't have sadness, happiness wouldn't make sense either. Like life is both. It's a beginning and an end, and happiness and sadness. And here you have someone bringing the dead back to life, which is definitely opposites clashing together in an unnatural way. Yeah, it's like poetic at that point.
And Yo completely takes her feet off, sweeps her off her feet, and Faust. Sorry,
Why
I
you gotta
had
do
to.
that?
I just had to. I had to.
You broke it. You broke the entire thing.
Her fever is just completely gone. Um, and after that, Yo loses the fight because his oversoul is gone. But because
Yeah, Faust
Faust,
gets
his
really.
oversoul is still there. I'm
The
guessing.
moral of the story is don't mess with Faust's foot fetish.
Oh dear, dear, this just makes things worse with the whole necrophilia thing. But but Yo loses the fight and he starts going on this whole spiel that because he was so detached, he didn't have to feel anything or feel like he never thought he'd feel anything for losing. But he's very frustrated, like an anime pro tag will on his first loss on the show. Um, that he loses and he needs to get stronger to save the people that he cares about. And he cries here, like the anime pro tag does here. Granted, it's not his crying isn't as comedic as we all know when Midoriya from My Hero Academia.
Mm-hmm.
um, Somebody get this man a bucket is what I normally would say for Midoriya, but usually Yo is like all down and beaten up. He's defeated both mentally and physically to the point where he makes it seem like he's probably not gonna go on with the fight. But Amidamaru, who is it's kind of funny that Amidamaru is the one that brings him up because leading up to this point in the show, Yo was always the one who was giving Amidamaru the pep talk, but Amidamaru was the one giving him a pep talk, and pretty much kind of like being funny with him. But he was like, because of him, he understands, I guess, death more. I guess is the best way to put it. He
Mm-hmm.
understands Yo more now than he did when he first, became his guardian ghost. And pretty much saying that, he always wondered what it'll work out with me, but he really believes in Yo like everybody else does, which I guess is the biggest point here is that everybody believes in Yo. And we have Anna saying, "What's up with this cool samurai?" and his laugh. I actually had to rewind that twice because her expression was funny. Like her expression, she doesn't show much expression. She's actually kind of like as laid back as Yo is sometimes, so she doesn't
Mm-hmm.
have much of a facial expression. So it's kind of
She kind of
funny.
reminds me from that redheaded character from Evangelion. I forget her name.
I've never watched that show, and before you say it, I will eventually get around. Other
She
stuff.
is like she's the main character who's very mild mannered and brown haired, skinny little kid. She's like simultaneously very aggressive rival and sort of a love interest that has the same abilities that he does, which are very rare in their world.
Hmm. I guess before we, to talk about episode 8 here, Faust goes on a rampage and
Mm-hmm.
almost kills Yo only for Rin and his oversoul to save him. But the only reason why Rin saves him is because he won't let anybody else kill him but him. Like Vegeta would say to Goku.
I saw the same thing, and I didn't want to say it because I thought you'd like hang up on me. But yeah,
I mean, I'm gonna point out the similarities if they're there, Chuck.
he wants to return his house to the former glory, and bring back the glory of the Saiyan race. But I didn't say that out loud.
I guess talking about that whole, I mean, we're not gonna talk.
It's
We're
not
gonna talk about,
Saiyan,
we're gonna talk about it in a minute. But
not Saiyan, Shaman. It's totally different. There's like many different letters. Saiyan, Shaman. They're not. They don't even sound alike.
I hate you.
The Saiyan King, the Shaman King. The Saiyan Prince, the Shaman Prince. Whatever. It's probably a coincidence.
How much? How much? How much? I don't even know anymore. Moving on to episode 8, because that was the end of episode 7. So yeah, we now have the end of the fight with Faust. We're now dealing with the aftermath of Yo being injured, Yamada being severely injured as I mute this episode, and the episode
Mhm.
begins with Yamada in the hospital bed, and we see his mother. And before anybody brings it up, this show was made during a point when tropes of an ugly husband and a beautiful wife were a thing.
Mhm.
So this is just one of those situations where like, and her name is Keiko. This is very funny. I think Keiko means something too. But the very worrying mother, and he got a sister. The very she's another stereotype.
Makeup.
She's also another stereotype. The mischievous sister likes to get her sister sibling in trouble. This
Mischievous, right?
his entire family is a stereotype.
His mischievous, you mean, not mysterious.
Sorry, mischievous. Sorry.
That's okay.
Like this entire family is a stereotype, and I want to say this for a lot of fairy tale fans. Uh, I could not see. Forgot his name, but he looks almost like him. But the only difference between him and that character of Fairy Tail is that the character for Fairy Tail is a fat, tubby man of his height. He he he's like he's not fat. He's not skinny either. But it's very I couldn't hear but man just coming from his mouth. But again with the stereotype of an ugly troll looking man with a beautiful tall woman. I
Was
was
she
like,
really that beautiful? You're really playing up how pretty she was, but I don't remember her being particularly pretty.
she I'm just gonna say she was pretty enough to for me to question how his father got her. I'll say that much. She was pretty enough for me to question her, like what she believes to be handsome. Because this man is really weird. This guy's got white hair. This guy is aging. Um, it's very freaking weird. It's like I think even like I mean we also I mean going off that topic we see that Yamada's life isn't you know all it's cracked up to be. You know he has all the expectations. He's apparently the heir to a multi-billion-dollar company that provides energy to the entire country of Japan.
Mm.
I don't know if that was a mistranslation or not because I thought they were in middle school, but maybe I could be wrong. But according to his father, after he gets healed, he wants him to transfer to an American university, and I'm very confused
I
because
thought it was university in the same way that My Hero Academia is considered university, and it was just a mistranslation. You know how like My Hero Academia feels like a university, but it's really just like middle school.
it's a high school. But I mean, yeah,
You
I
know what
get
I
your
mean?
point.
Well, they're 14. That's still middle school age around here.
I guess it could be, but then again, but then okay, I don't even know. That means I guess I mean, I guess all with all because of like I feel like it has to be high school because like hold up, how old are people? How old is Deku?
14.
He's 16 currently.
He's 16 currently, but he's like in year three right now. His first appearance, he was 14.
He's 15 right now.
No, he's 16 right now, but he was
No, where
14.
we are right now, right where we're right now in the anime.
Oh,
No, you're right. Never mind. He's 16. I was right
yeah.
when I first said that.
So anyway, yeah, he's 16 now. He was 14 then, but 14 in my experience as a teacher teaching middle school was like middle school age.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is like, what that doesn't make much sense to me in my brain because that means when they get out, they're just gonna go into a job, and I don't think that's how education works. But moving on, but
It's a vocational school. He's probably going to, given how rich they are, he's probably going to a prep school in America.
I was talking about, but I was still talking about my Hero Academia, but I'm just gonna drop that subject. I mean, yeah, I'm confused, but we see that his life isn't all it's cracked up to be. It kind of makes sense why he would hang out with Yo. Speaking of which, apparently his father doesn't trust Yo to the point where he starts researching him, and they find out that apparently he skipped school and he's a he's a slacker, which completely goes against yet again another yin and yang thing where Yamada's family is hardworking, but Yo is the complete opposite. And you see that apparently his mother doesn't seem to. She just cares about her son, but her father, her husband wants his son to be ready to take over the company. I'm guessing from the way everything's kind of set up. I
Right.
I honestly don't think that we're gonna see these guys again, considering that he does run away as he's about to head over to America. Um, I feel like they're just a one-stop thing. I mean, I could be wrong, and it'd be kind of funny to see them again, but I don't think we will.
I mean, they
Uh,
might look for him, right?
I guess considering how messed up his father is, I highly doubt he'll look for him, especially if he ran away with some
The
freaking
mother
woman.
should. The mother might, and the father might do it for his ego.
I guess I'm not gonna sit there and say that it's impossible. I just don't know. I mean, we could see him again. We do see him again. It'd be kind of funny to see some more development with that, but who knows? Based on what we know about their parents, they're very one's overprotected, the other one doesn't. He just wants
Hmm.
his son to take over the company. But we see, yeah, that he doesn't have a good family life. He thought his father was coming to visit him to see how he was doing, and instead he comes to slap him in the face, giving him more injuries in the process in the hospital.
Teaching him a damn lesson.
Oh dear. Oh no, don't please. No. No, I don't condone this.
Endeavor would approve. What?
Moving on. Now we see Yamada, like, I guess, looking at his life and wondering, coming to terms with why he hung out with Yo anyway, because he didn't have a plan for his life, but Yo seemed to know what he wanted to do. We also find out apparently because he's wondering where Yo is because he didn't come to visit him. He finds out that he's in the hospital room right next to him. And when he walks in, the mood has changed. Amidamara looks up at him and looks back down, and Yo essentially just says, "Leave. I'm not your friend anymore. You made me lose like the match with you running away like an idiot." Uh, Mansa takes that harshly and runs away. Anna comments that she didn't think he could be that harsh, even though Yo was just trying to, in his own way, do something stupid, which is try to protect his friend from getting hurt again. Make
Which is
characters
not a
cry.
bad move.
I mean, yeah,
But
it
it's
makes
also
sense,
it's
but
also potentially a selfish move too. If he's like, I don't want anything in my way if I'm going to become Shaman King. Like this guy has proven himself to be a liability, and it's also deeply affecting his own safety. So it sort of makes sense to me.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I get it. At the same time, it's
It's not
just
good
kind of
for
harsh.
anybody.
I mean, if he was trying to keep him safe, he could have just said that please don't come near me ever again situation versus just flat out telling him that I'm not your friend anymore. Even though the
Yeah.
first thing that he said to him was in the first episode when we met, we're friends, we're best friends, and Yamada not knowing and Yo not knowing Yamada's, like what his life is like it's when it's like I don't like a lot of that was like said in haste versus really coming up with an actual plan.
Yeah.
Granted, all this is all for Yo so he can go train by himself so he can get stronger because he realizes how much weaker he is compared to Ren right now. Does Ren have another spear? I don't even know. I guess it doesn't really matter. But I saw that flash, but I was like, did that spear look different? I could have sworn he didn't. That spear didn't look the way it did. But pretty much Yo is now coming up with a plan to get stronger, and he ends up going back to his home, which you already talked about earlier. That yeah, I guess before we move on, I know Jock's going to talk about this because he talked about it and he wouldn't let it go last time it showed up. Ryu's cut hair. I figured I'd let you rant because I know you're gonna rant because you ranted last time.
I mean, I might actually have a little more deep of a comment to say here than you expect, but I do have something to say about it.
Go right ahead.
Okay. So, this episode, differently than other episodes that we've seen so far, I felt like really was kind of embodying some major storyline shifting. Um, Manta's character has been changed by Yo, in my opinion, like pretty significantly, and it's growing. And there's some symbolism here where, like, when he leaves the airport, you see he forgets his wallet, and then he looks up and he sees the plane flying to America. But I saw some symbolism there that like the wallet was kind of like the promising, lucrative future that he was going to have. You know what I mean? That he was like, he had this perfect like future set up for him and arranged for him, where he would have had the wallet together, he would have had the money, he would have had like everything arranged for him. He was going to go to America, and he literally sees it flying away, like his money too. At the time that he meets Ryu, who kind of like turns him into like, I don't know, like a nomad or a streetwalker or a gypsy or something like that, where he just kind of, maybe not a gypsy, it might not be appropriate, but like the other things, like he's walking the land now and he doesn't have any, forgot his wallet, it was in his suitcase with all his stuff that he didn't bring with him, and it just flew to the USA, like just like the rest of his future. So, or that version of his future, you know what I mean? So you see this major character growth from Manta, and then you see Ryu like showing up, and he's got this new like little future going for himself too, where he's going to go to America and become a sushi chef. And you have that little loop of like his hair popping out that I sort of thought like kind of like also symbolized that future. And shortly after that, he discards that future and says, "Oh, I'll just become a shaman instead." And then shortly afterwards, his hair gets cut off, almost like his future was thrown away at that time too, just like the wallet. So, and then for a third layer of symbolism, goes to his grandfather. And the first thing that the grandfather says is like, if you're going to grow, you're going to have to die and become reborn, which is like another way of like seeing the future go away. Like when you die, like nothing gets rid of your future. This like dying does. So all three of them had something that was really important to them, possibly like the most important thing to them in certain ways. Because Manta's like lucrative future was pretty important to him and defined who he was. And Ryu, being more of a comic character, like he was defined by his hair, you know what I mean? It started growing back, and then he cut that off, sort of defining who he was. And it was even like cut a little bit more than like, just that piece. Like it was that and like a chunk of what was there before too. And then you have like literally die, you know what I mean? And then his friends that used to hang out in the graveyard, Ryu's friends that all used to hang out in the graveyard now have jobs and like are kind of like starting a new life in a reboot too, and don't hang out in the graveyard anymore. So I know that might be a little deeper than you expected me to go with my rant, but like I saw three big points here that we're talking about getting rid of the old and accepting and embracing the new here, and then sort of a fourth with the jobs of Ryu's friends. So I thought that was super interesting that like they all like symbolically and in some way literally like discard their current life to take on something new.
You're right. That was not what I expected to come from that entire situation.
But it's cool, isn't it? Like I don't know, I liked that parallel.
I mean, I didn't look at it like that. Yeah, we're gonna move on from that. I think you said everything that could be said about that. I'm gonna let
Sorry.
that just. No, it's no problem. I'm gonna let that. That's gonna be Jock's word for today. Everybody think about that. But as we come back, we see Yo after he's already gone home. Now he's with his grandfather, and they're going to a cave for him to do his training because Furikuru is you only have the maximum of Furikuru you're born with, or shaman energy. I'm gonna probably call it is what you're born with. You can only increase that if you quote unquote die. By that he means you gotta focus on your sixth sense, which is apparently something that shamans have that they have control with. It allows them to sense and control spirits and whatnot. And this is, I guess, another one of those situations where like Yo has changed enough to the point to realize that he's going to train, he's going to do his best to be strong enough to be able to become the Shaman King. Something that his grandfather was shocked by because back when he was trying to train him, Yo didn't want to do anything but listen to music.
Yeah.
So that was like kind of like a change for him on like something giving him his whole life to gain something new. And again, he's also wearing his smoke weed every day shirt. Still don't know why they did that. That seems so weird to me. But
Just literally one shirt.
but we first then we come back to Mata and Ryu in a diner. I guess stopping for dinner or whatever, on their way to meet up with Yo. and Manta is having, I guess, his own like, well, not redemption, but his own like monologue in his own brain. Ryu being the guy of wisdom here, ironically enough, saying that Yo doesn't hate you, and like you're still his friend and whatnot. Go and see him, and I will take you there, which is essentially what this road trip is. But Ryu also has his own like idea. He wants to see if he can't. I'm sorry that his pompadour and that piece of hair sticking that's really distracted me.
The what?
Jeez, the piece of his hair and his pompadour is really distracting me. It's like it's so out of place. Jeez, but but yeah, Ryo says he has his own like idea. He wants to see if he can't like learn from Ryo to become learn from Yo to become a shaman. And it's like
Hmm.
I was like, okay, well he can already see spirits. I mean, why the heck not? The only thing that's missing is that evil spirit that took him over. But I guess with that we can now talk about something that Jock brought up earlier, which is the second love interest. Um, I don't know if I consider her a love interest because really for me love interests are or somebody that can compete to be able to get noticed by the main character they're in love with. But
Well,
I don't think she has the ability to compete. That's just me.
we don't know if she's going to be able to or not, but it's not like unbelievable to think so.
I just
Um,
don't think she can compete, and it's just because of her personality. Now, granted, I will say I'm kind of contradicting myself here because there's a character kind of like her from Naruto called Hinata, and she's soft spoken too. But the difference between her and Hinata actually kind of, as the series goes on, starts making strides to get up there with the main character, so she can be with him. She doesn't seem like the type of character to do that. I could be wrong. I could be wrong.
she can certainly hang with him. She is certainly representative of his more chill side, like his more laid back side. But she does have a
No, I
spine
feel
to
like
her
Anna
side.
is more representative of his chill side, if anything.
I mean, as far as love interest goes. But you
Oh,
also there's also like more name symbolism here. I actually I actually have a cat named Tama that I had until just before I got married, and I got it from my friend who had named it based. She spoke a little Japanese, and she said that there was an anime character, a cat named Tama, that was named that way because it had a jewel shape in its forehead, and that Tama means jewel. And I've also seen this referenced in some other translations that Tama means jewel. I looked it up, and it means it also. From what I looked up, it said globe or ball or perfect. But I know in the past I've looked up the translation of Tama in Japanese, and I've seen say gemstone or jewel or something like that as well, or diamond. So you have that like her name means that she's a jewel or perfect or something like that. And then Tama Tama, and if you look at her name, it's Tama Mora Tamao. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like Tama Tama in short. Tama Tama is actually a phrase in Japanese that means by accident too. So you have this like accidentally perfect kind of thing, and for someone that's awkward, you know what I mean, and kind of like not clumsy, but just awkward. Like she just kind of like comes in from a weird direction, but has the powers, has the backbone, has has a completely different appeal than Anna does. I think it's kind of cool to think about her as a potential love interest. And then I mean, along with that, the spirit friends that she has, Panchi and Conchi, are obviously full of sexual energy. So there's that like sort of implication that she's got this sexual energy all around her. You know what I mean?
I just also want to look up. I looked up ponchi as like a dessert made with egg white, cinnamon, and sugar. Uh,
No, Panchi's a Tanuki.
no, but I'm saying like I literally looked up the word, and it's just apparently I guess one of the meanings of it is dessert made with egg white, cinnamon, and sugar. Uh,
Oh,
that
cool.
that's disturbing. I wonder what ponchi means while we're here. Ugh. But and I guess also with that whole, I guess over here we're talking about her spirits. I feel like now the thing is here. There's a transitional scene that we see of her spirits, and they are wearing diapers. I'm guessing only to cover their genitalia, which is very. They don't hide it.
Is Conchi a type of wine? Because when I typed Conchi in, I get vanilla, Villa Conchi, Bella Conchi, and they're all like sort of like I think champagnes or something.
I mean, I'm getting something else here. It's like the name derives from the
Sparkling.
Latin concipio concepto, meaning gather. Wait, that doesn't make sense. Conchi. Wait, let me look that up again. What is conchi? Greek shell. Probably need to look up the Japanese meanings for these versus like the actual like, because I'll just come up with like.
Well, Conchi I thought was going to be connected to conch shells, which is what the Greek says, but that's what I was expecting to see, like snails or something, like snail salad or something come from it. But when I looked it up and went to image search, it just shows tons of pictures of wine.
Here's something. Uh, Look at conchi. I get this other thing, concho, which I guess is looking. I don't even think that is an actual word. It's probably derived from something else. Like it's
If
a
you type,
prank performed by clasping the hands together in the shape of an imaginary gun and attempting to poke or unsuspecting victim's anus.
oh
There's a
no,
scene.
Servant Dictionary.
There's a.
If you try searching by Conchi, and you'll see a million pictures of different types of champagne and sparkling wine, and like image search. It'd just be fun if they were both also foods. That's all.
I mean, it probably is for all we know. I guess based on what I just read of in the Urban Dictionary, whatever, that makes sense for the fox because of what he does do later on in the episode, which is pee all over Manta, while surrounded by Punchy's ballsack.
It's quite a ball sack.
Yeah,
I've never seen a weaponized ball sack before.
I'm just a little bit. I'm not gonna lie. Like I knew that Shaman King had went through some censorship
Mm-hmm.
years ago, and a lot of things didn't get. And this is during a time when a lot of things from Japan never made it over here because America decensored it and made sure. I mean, not decensored, but censored it, making sure that it was suitable for kids because they were showing these to kids. On 4Kids, and 4Kids is notorious for censoring a lot of stuff. But it's one of those things. Wait, did Ryu grow a beard and all that? Hold up, what the heck?
I couldn't tell if he was dirty or if he just grew a beard. Because he looks pretty beat up still, but I couldn't tell for sure.
I mean, I could believe either or. If I'm
Yeah.
being honest.
I
But
thought I'd wait until next episode to bring up anything about that because I couldn't tell if it really was a beard or not.
yeah, no
And
kidding.
is it just me or is Panchi and Kochi, are their tails phallic?
You know,
If you look at their tails, they look
I know.
phallic.
I just saw. I wish I didn't see, considering that Ponchi's ball sack is hanging. Um,
Mm-hmm. It's coming out the other side and all, but it looks an awful lot like two penises.
ah, dear. This is not what I wanted to see, and it's also disturbing that I think from the way they also and there's hair coming off of his ball sack.
Yeah, and then
Good
when they
attention
kill
to
Ryu,
detail.
do you notice that? Did you notice when they take out Ryu that they hit him in the crotch with what I'm
Yeah,
pretty sure was his penis?
yeah, yeah. I didn't want to mention that.
Dick to the dick, man.
Oh dear. We also see her
There's no
oversoul,
way.
which is
There's
oversoul
no
Cupid.
way.
I'm
There's
trying
no
to,
way
I'm, try,
this is not two penises. There's
I'm trying
no
to,
way.
I'm trying to move on.
I was trying to find a picture of it. There's no way. I just threw you a picture in Discord. There's no way those are anything but penises. It's really disturbing.
I already saw the image. I didn't want to talk about it.
Okay, can I say something a little more interesting about Panchi and Kochi then?
I mean, if it's nothing to do with the way they look, then go right ahead.
So Panchi was a Tanuki, which you know from Mario, the Tanuki suit and stuff like that. They're a Tanuki is a real animal in Japanese myth, but it's also a Japanese mythological supernatural animal.
I already know that.
So I thought that was really cool that they came up a lot in different like Japanese classics and things like that. And it says that they can shapeshift into other things or people and can possess human beings, which is also something a kitsune can do. A kitsune is what kanchi is. So I thought that was interesting that they were really similar, a dog and a fox that can shapeshift and possess people, because that was like something that they both shared. And then a kitsune, I thought it was interesting because one of the things I read was that the more tails a kitsune has, they can have as many as 9. The older, wiser, and more powerful they are. Now this guy only has like debatably one tail. But I was thinking about Tails from Sonic the Hedgehog and how he's like a fox with 2 tails. So he's probably, we look at him and think fox, but he's probably a kitsune. If you really think about it, with like a kitsune with some power because he's got 2 tails and they can have up to 9, but still,
I think he's already confirmed to be a fox, though.
What?
I think Tails has been confirmed to be a fox, though.
But kitsune is the Japanese word for fox. It's literally the word for fox in Japanese. So Tails could be a kitsune and literally be translated to fox in the US, and what I'm saying wouldn't necessarily be untrue. But they also had the ability to do things like change shape and possess people and stuff like that too.
But I get that. I mean, I guess the other thing, I guess we're talking about like Japanese mythology. I learned recently that apparently in the mythos and whatnot, apparently Kitsune and Tanuki are at odds with each other. Usually they're mortal enemies in anything that they're both in. So it's kind
I'm
of
sorry,
funny.
I'm wrong. Sorry to cut your thing. I'm wrong. They don't possess people. They do shapeshift. I'm sorry. Would you get back? I was super distracted by that. I was like dying to find out.
It's kind of funny that in like a lot of the mythology that usually is involved with them in it. Usually you never see, if there's a Tanuki, you never see a Kitsune mentioned in the same myths a lot of times or stories. But whenever they are in the same myth, usually they're at odds with each other. And usually Tanukis well, they're both mischievous and they both like to play pranks. But I think the Tanuki is more willing to play a prank on you than I think the Kitsune. I think the Kitsune is trying to get your soul. I think it's like one of the. They both do different things, but they also can be mischievous and pull a prank on a human being. And I'm well aware that the transforming thing. I think the Kitsune. I found out about that recently. I didn't know it could transform, but I know that Tanuki could, for obvious reasons. But
Yeah.
But I didn't know that. I think I learned about the Kitsune's transforming abilities as well. And I didn't know about the whole like more tails. I mean, that's kind of where the 9-tail fox thing for Naruto came from. But yeah, I've really those 2 characters is really weird. I feel like we're going to see her more anyway because of her connection to Yo. It just makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So we're probably going to see those 2 again.
But I thought surrounding her by all that sexual energy, like, sort of, like, also was setting her up as, like, a love interest. You know what I mean? That she's, like, hanging out with the 2 most horny things in the world and being sweet and pure herself. Like, it just seemed like it was a,
she is a diviner, though.
It's also interesting to know that Kitsune, can feed on the life spirit of human beings through sexual contact. So when they jabbed him with their penis, like, sexual contact literally can drain their life force. So it's possible that he actually did have like a mythological reason for doing what he did. And Tanukis, it says, actually have been shown with their testicles flung over their backs like travelers' packs, or using their testicles as drums. So like, there's some like mythological background for both of those.
Can I just say ow? Like,
you sure can. But
just say ow.
An actual Tanuki actually does have some pretty hardy testicles too. I'll send you a picture on Discord.
No,
And
no, no, no,
if you
no,
look at it though, you
no,
can't unsee it.
no,
Go look.
no, no, Chuck. Please
Those are
stop.
big, hairy old testicles right there. So even like, I mean, if you're listening at home, just Google it. But like,
No, please don't. Please don't. Please don't. I don't want to be responsible for any of this.
that's a good point. But so there is like some like justification. This isn't just like, I mean, it's gross sexuality stuff, but like it's not just that. There is actually mythological like foundation for those kind of things.
I'm just gonna say it's just Japan, and I'm gonna move on from that subject.
There's even a common Japanese schoolyard song like that makes reference to tanuki testicles.
Oh dear. I mean,
Ten tanuki's bullocks, even without wind, they swing swing. That's the translation of it, but like it's in Japanese as well.
I don't. I believe it because there are children's songs over here that reference the bombing of uh the London Bridge song. Like it references like violence and stuff that happened, and the kids don't know what they're singing, but everybody else does, and it's one of the reasons why it's banned and being sung in elementary schools. Uh, Elementary schools to this day. But yeah. But I guess as we end this episode off, they go meet Yo. They go meet Yo at the end of the cave where he decided to go and do some training, and they all make it. They're all serious right for a couple of seconds because they're saying that Yo might come out differently, and I just sat there like, this is a trope where usually the main character comes out and their hair is longer, right? Yo's gonna come out looking the exact same, isn't he? And he comes out looking the exact same. I just find it funny that they were playing on that whole like usually training usually involves the main character changing somewhat, but Yo did not. If anything, he changed back to being his old self. And he actually mentions it too, where he's like while he's like walking in there, he's like he starts to realize that he can't see, and he's like he's actually thought he was dead, and he just said that in order to keep going, he just stopped thinking and moved forward. And I was like, well, that's typically a Yo thing right there. Like right there, he mentions that he just stops thinking. He comes out at the end. They said he's all laid back. He even surprises Anna, which is, by the way, really hard to do sometimes.
But it did prove, he did prove to be pretty good his improvement proved to be pretty good. Like he immediately like destroys the attack that Grandpa sends to him, and like just kind of shows his evolution and everything else. So I thought that was kind of cool. Like he's himself, maybe because like.
And the arm plate that his honor Vinabaro's oversoul is bigger now, which is like interesting too.
But it's kind of cool. Like it's almost like he's like acting that way because he's in control again. You know, like he's gone back to being able to completely cover it up. Like he's not as shaken as he was. He comes back feeling like he's on top of himself again. So you get to see the version of him that he wants the world to see, as opposed to maybe like what's going underneath. But the fact that he has that transition right away like that kind of hints that like there is more going on underneath.
I guess speaking of that, I want to bring up that it's a tiny thing, but it's actually dealing with Anna, and it's a scene when they're saying everything's back to normal and whatnot, and you see Anna in there, and she's being tsundere, which is what she is. I like to bring up that it's very light. When you look underneath her eyes, you see this little blush as if she was worried about him, which is something that she doesn't like to show. She doesn't like to show weakness apparently, but like right here, she says it in a very sarcastic way. But she's like, "You're alive, so at least it's a job well done." But you see like she was concerned mainly because she wasn't the one who suggested him going to that cave to begin with. So it's one of those things where you see her evolving too, showing that she's showing a lot more concern for Yo now than she was in the past. So like in that whole love interest thing, it sounds like she really it looks like she looked like she really did care about Yo, and it wasn't just an arranged marriage, so she really is in love with him. So it's like one of those things like it's showing a lot more here than it did in the past. But it's like I mean it's a small thing, but I think it's appreciated considering there's another girl involved in the show now who has feelings for Yo.
Ooh, it's pretty clear.
So like, I mean, it's kind of cool that they're showing that more of Anna now. So at least now, if there is going to be a fight, at least we'll see that Anna is in the fight as well. if there's a fight. But now Yo's asking here. I mean, everybody's eating at the dinner, having dinner and whatnot. Yo's all laid back, and he's asking about his grandfather and his mother, who we have not seen his mother. You know, I thought it was assumed that she died when she gave birth to her, but maybe not. I was probably wrong in assuming that. So at least they said, where is she right now? She's like helping out some dictator or something like that.
Yeah, they're just off somewhere, and they're like, "What the hell? You're home," and they don't want to be around.
I think this is kind of weird too. 'Cause I think it doesn't mean much to Yo because he's used to living by himself. But for Yamada, it's like his parents are well, his father is a douchebag. So like parents and stuff like that like mean a lot probably more to him. But also I want to bring up too, not that it's been showing any hints here, but this has been going in my mind ever since I realized this and knew this a long time ago. The creator of the show, um, he has in the past known to do yaoi pairings, and by yaoi I mean gay pairings.
Yeah,
Um, in his in the in one of his other series he's done, usually there was one of the male characters is actually and he expresses this as in love with the main character, but the main character is not gay, he's straight. So it ends up there's a lot going on there, but I just want to say that if I don't know if they would, but like with the way they're characterizing Yamada here, they could go that way, and I just want people not to be shocked if it does go that way.
I just want to say that if gay stuff gets brought into this series, I really hope that it's anatomically correct.
Why are you why, why, for a minute he's shorter than Yo, but he's talking about something else entirely. I'm like, no, Jock, why?
Sorry, that was the worst pun in the world.
I hope it's not anatomically correct just to mess with you.
Anatomically correct.
Oh dear, jeez.
That's what I was getting at.
I mean, if they were Yuri in here, I'd be for it, but I'm not. That's not. That's, but moving on, we see. I mean, I guess the continue like the end this is that we see Yo's grandfather testing him, and he brings up Anna brings up Harshima to so Yo can bring out his oversoul. And the first thing that Yo notices that is that the shield plate on the oversoul is different, and Amidamaru can talk now. Something that I was not aware of they couldn't do during the original oversoul. And we also find out that oversouls can change and evolve. And they also bring up that Amidamaru is able to manifest on a higher plane now. So that means something. I don't know what that means, but I'm pretty sure it means something else other than the Oversoul. And also,
I mean,
brother, does that mean that maybe Amidamaru is like a different class of spirit now? But I don't know, man. I'm thinking about that too much. As we end this episode, we flash over to Ren Tao, as we brought up earlier on in this podcast. Ren is coming out of the shower with a leaf in the perfect spot, in the foreground, as Ren is in the background.
right. Although we do get to see some kind of cool yin yang tattoo that's then copied over by his yin yang on his robe, right? I thought that was kind of cool. Following up with that yin yang thing.
Is it on his robe? I never picked up on that.
Yeah, it was on his clothes. It was on his clothing, if it was a robe or whatever. But there was also a tattoo on his body.
That's interesting. I didn't notice that. And now we're like now we're having a conversation between Ren and Basson, and Basson brings up the fact that he probably could have won if he had his horse. So I'm starting to think there's probably going to be more of a powerful oversoul for Basson showing up later on. We also find out apparently Basson is a spirit passed down within the Tao family for generations, as a way to bring their family, as Jock brought up, to glory. I hate this. I really do, considering the Shaman King was around when Dragon Ball Z was around.
Did he go Super Shaman when he went into that cave?
hate you.
He definitely got a Zenkai boost by going close to death and coming back.
Why? Why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? Well, as like even with jokes being correct aside, uh, um, we see Rin. We're starting to learn more about Rin. We found out that
Mhm.
Rin's doing this because the family, like the family, he has to take on like the family's burden because they're all full of hatred. He wants to end the cycle of hatred, which is interesting considering that up to this point, Ren's been doing nothing but spreading hatred. But he wants to end it all. He wants to it to all end in blood. So this is gonna be the ultimate. This Ren's gonna most likely be the ultimate test for Yo to change because it's gonna happen. But what is gonna happen in the fight with those two is gonna ultimately involve with like Ren losing and possibly some major change coming over him. I guess.
Yeah, because his first major villain is General Tao, right?
He had to go Dragon Ball there. He had to go Dragon
I
Ball.
was saying that he's bringing the Tao family back. His father's a great soldier, and he's now like the top one, so he's kind of like General Tao, right?
You know I don't
Also,
believe you, right?
yin yang is not on his shirt, by the way. The shirt or whatever that he puts on actually it has a hole in the back of the shirt, so when he puts it on, you can see through it and see his tattoo on the back.
I have to point out that's kind of sadistic for the family. They tattooed their son, and it looks like they tattooed him like when he was like 5. I think he's covering his back. Like
Yeah, when
tattoos
he gets
hurt.
older, I think he's gonna be so stretched out.
Probably not with anime. It's gonna probably just it's gonna probably just conform to his back. That's probably what's gonna happen.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess with that, that's the end of that episode. We now know a little bit more of what's happening. The next fight we definitely know for certain, because Ren confirmed it, is his fight with Ren Tao. Or Tao Ren. But we learned a little bit more about this character. We also learned a little bit more about like Yo, which is gonna probably come back. That we now know that Yo has his weak no, Yo has a weakness figured out, so he needs to be able to keep his cool in a fight with Ren. But we'll see how that comes. How that comes to pass. Because Ren's talking about like Bason's talking about that if he had his horse, he would be at full power. So we also learned that oversouls can change, so we're probably going to see a whole different oversoul for Tao Ren since it's been a couple of weeks probably in the show. And I think I guess we need to get Yo get a power up so that way he could like be formidable. So we got that to look forward to. Um, so these two episodes are really good. I mean, we had like a historical figure, well, a mythical historical figure show up in the form of Faust, who went crazy.
I was
Uh,
more into these two episodes than any that I've seen so far. I really enjoyed them.
I'm glad because I feel bad, like I feel bad for you watching this if you weren't enjoying any of the episodes.
Right. No,
I
I
was,
did. I liked this one a lot more than many of the ones I've seen previously.
well, we'll see if they can't keep the momentum going with the next two when we do review those 2 weeks out. I think, yeah, 2 weeks out. But the next episode next week is going to be focusing on just My Hero Academia, since it's coming out on July 10th. So be looking out for that. Um, I think that's about it. Like, I'll be keeping up, with the distribution. Also, if you guys have anything to say, if you want to communicate with us, do so on my Twitter, the GameHunter09 Twitter handle. I will figure something out. I might have to make another Twitter just specifically for this podcast. We'll have to see. Um, so that way, at least that way you can communicate directly with us, and we can answer any questions you have. Still don't know. We still don't have a confirmation on Dragon Prince yet. So that's going to be in limbo until we get a confirmation date for that. I think that's about it. Any more animes that we want to watch, we'll we'll get around to it. A lot of animes I probably won't be reviewing specifically because I've already watched this entire series, and if I bring it up to Jock here, I'll just have him watch it by himself because I want to see I want to hear about how he feels about it. But I specifically say not Dragon Prince, but the Demon Slayer. Won't be reviewing. Then the season 2 is coming out, but I won't be reviewing that here, and I won't be bringing it up because I want to just enjoy it just for the show because I enjoyed the first season a lot. Now I could do a retrospective review after the entire series is over, but we'll have to see about that. But that'll possibly be by myself, because I'm not gonna force any more shows onto him that he has to watch.
Oh. I didn't. I've watched some of Demon Slayer, and I actually really don't like it. I stopped watching it on my own.
Wow. Okay. Well, now I know that.
Jesse and I were watching it, and we watched a bunch, and then we decided to stop watching it. So maybe
what
not
episode
Demon
did you stop
Slayer.
watching?
Oh, I don't know, 8 or 9. We got pretty far in before we stopped. I just wasn't into it.
I guess I got a question for you. Was the character was it a character that made it unenjoyable for you?
I didn't like the attacks. I didn't like how I didn't like that I didn't know what was going on with the powers. Like he went out and he did this like training montage thing, and then he broke through the rock, and then all of a sudden he had these water attacks, but I didn't know anything about them. I didn't understand what was going on in the fights. I just sort of had to believe that he could do everything he did. And I just wasn't engaged with it. Like the fights were boring and silly because the animation that they did for drawing the attacks was like kind of ridiculous, and I didn't understand who had the upper or bottom hand. Like I couldn't keep score of like what was going on in the fight because I had no idea what was going on.
Well,
And
I guess to say that, I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter now. But a movie came out after the season 1 ended. There was like a year, and a movie came out. And in the movie, it's canon. There's a fight at the end of the movie that really shows that there's a huge power difference between demons and the demon slayers. At least like the demon slayer is like with Tanjiro or Zenitsu. I will say I
the
was
same thing with
confused.
his sister. Like, you know, she's really powerful, but every time she does something, it just comes out of left field. You're like, oh, she can do that. And oh, she can do that. And it's not like a feeling of progression. It just feels like she's there to save the day. And I just really didn't like the way the fights were choreographed. I wasn't really captivated by the story, which kind of like meanders. Like he finishes something and he's like, oh, I'm going to go do a new fight now. Like, I know there's a little bit of story, but it's just not, it wasn't good enough to keep me watching it.
So not even the brother sister relationship that Tanjiro and she had was enough for you?
No, because she was kind of empty. I know she like cared about him and stuff, and you'd see this little like, sort of like,
I can
I
see
don't
what you're
know,
talking
like
about, but I feel disappointed really because like you
comatose
gave
like
up
religion.
you gave up like I mean I guess if it's not worth it for you by episode 8 I would say stop watching it, but it's like there is a payoff with that, and it's very and I would say to me it was an emotional worthwhile payout for me to watch what became of that because I will agree with you, you don't see much of it throughout the thing. You only really see one side of it, and that's just Tanjiro trying to desperately keep his sister from dying from the sunlight because she has to be in that box. Because demons up to that point can't be seen in the sunlight.
Right, but it's
Uh,
also kind of silly that he's carrying this sister in what seems like an impossibly small box all the time, and I don't
Well, I
know.
mean, she shrinks. She isn't just like she isn't like full size in that box. She shrinks.
I know, but it's just kind of absurd. It's like you just never know what they can do. Everything's so convenient. It doesn't feel like a good story. It's not completely off base. Like I said, I watched it for a while before I finally stopped. I watched like 8 episodes, which 8 episodes means like I watched it for a few months because Jesse and I like rotate through the stuff we're watching on our own, and maybe like every 5 times we watch something, we might watch one of them. So it was like we were watching them for a long time. We just never got excited about it, and it wasn't me. It wasn't Jesse. It was me that finally said, you know what? Like I don't mind if we just stop watching this. I'm sorry, you know. And we just moved on to the next thing. I really like. There were some other series that have come out lately that I really like, but that wasn't one of them.
Okay, I mean that's understandable. I guess to answer your question about the I guess the abilities, I for one was confused at myself. A friend of mine who's way further in
I
actually
wasn't confused. I just wasn't informed about what was going on.
I was confused, man, because I didn't understand if they were actually manifesting the element they were using. And actually, a friend told me that it is talked about later on in the story, but they are manifesting those abilities. They are like and I guess another thing too. In later on in the
I mean,
show,
you
they
don't
do.
see him do any of that crap in training. He just can do it when he leaves. It's just like it's not earned. Like when you watch Dragon Ball Z, and I'm not getting mixed about Dragon Ball Z, but when you watch Dragon Ball Z, you can point at any move, tell about like when he learned it, who he learned it from, and very often like the journey that he got to get it. And like
There
one
was
of the
no
big
real
criticisms,
journey because like Goku could do the Kamehameha after seeing Master Roshi do it one time.
I know,
There
but
was no journey for that.
he did have a big journey and how to manifest any energy whatsoever. Like his first energy beam wasn't then; it was earlier when he got sent back in time. But like, or at least I think it was. But like, you could pretty much tell the story. And one of the big criticisms of Dragon Ball later on was that, like abilities started just happening on their own. Like when he reads Krillin's mind, and you're like, what? Or when he just sort of automatically knows Super Saiyan 3, and he's like, I learned it off screen. And then like with some of the blue abilities and stuff like that, and like when the new Saiyans from the other alternate dimension can just do the abilities, you know, and they're not earned, and suddenly they're like Super Saiyan 2 and stuff like that, and it just pop, I did it. There was a tingle in the back of my spine. It just kind of ruins the backstory a little bit because like they can do something super easy that somebody else couldn't do at all, you know.
I mean,
So
I
like,
guess to defend them, because I had time to think about that. One of the things people need to remember is that those Saiyans from universe whatever universe they're from,
mhm. Six.
their history is completely different. It's not like in our universe where the Saiyans were enslaved, killed, used, stuff like that, and they didn't know about it. And it's the same thing with those Saiyans; they didn't know about it, but because they learned about it from another Saiyan, like if they were taught exactly how it worked, it's kind of like as I was passing knowledge that he didn't have when he first learned to his protege. He could learn it much faster, and it's more believable because he got taught from how to do it. Technically speaking, Goku taught Khalifa how to go Super Saiyan. It's just like she got it really easily. The same thing with Kaba. Vegeta taught Kaba how to go Super Saiyan, and he got it really easily. It just comes down to the fact that Vegeta and Goku had to work to get it. Goku, Vegeta, Gohan had to work to get it because they didn't know it existed and how to do it. They kind of manifested it out of nowhere because they didn't know they had the ability to transform.
Right.
On top of that, like they had like Goku went through a lot of like because he was weak. Goku was pretty weak. So he had to go through a lot of training to even get to that point. Who's to say that those Saiyans weren't already strong to begin with? Because apparently they're good guys in their universe. But yeah, I understand. I mean, like I'm not gonna like I said before. Like they explain a lot of things, and I guess I will have to agree that maybe the sword techniques do kind of just come out of nowhere for him. But at the same time, I don't know how you do a training montage with like first we don't know if they're really manifesting the element to begin with, and then second of all. Um,
Like, how about where the fuck did this come from? Like, we don't. He's never taught to use his energy for anything like that at all. And then all of a sudden he can do it. Like, all we know is that he can run up and down mountains and crap. And then all of a sudden he's doing water techniques.
A lot of
Like,
things get explained, introduced later on in the series. They're just kind of getting you involved in the world, and
but that's. It just feels like bad story building. I don't know. It just. He didn't have to use water techniques if it wasn't the right time to do them.
but so far up to that point in the world, the only things that can hurt a demon are those demon slayer swords. Tanjiro could not hurt a demon otherwise. That's why his sister got killed. But guess
Yeah, I
another
get that.
like I just I enjoy the series. I feel like a lot of things get paid off. Like the way they do it, things get paid off really easily. I enjoy what I watched, and that's why I said I probably just review by myself, but as a retrospective after everything's done and said with, because I'm invested in what they showed in the movie, and I can't wait for season 2. So I'm gonna watch that on my own time. But I mean, yeah, like I said, I might give Invincible a go. I haven't given it a go yet, but like it's like
It
I keep
was
on.
good. It was good.
I'm not saying it's not good, but I just don't know if I'm gonna be interested in it, like, because not everything is for everybody. And like, based on all the thumbnails I'm seeing, there's a lot of blood in there. I'm like, I mean, I did watch Tokyo Ghoul, I enjoyed that, But it's just
Hmm.
what's my blood threshold? Like, how much blood do I not have to see before I end up saying that's it, I'm done? So I guess we'll
You
find
know,
out.
it actually did make Jesse cry.
Wait, what happened?
It did make Jesse cry watching it. What
What was this
about
about?
Castlevania? Would you ever watch Castlevania with me?
I mean, I would, I'm just not that interested in Castlevania, which is, I guess,
It's a
interesting to
cool
say.
story, and it gets really good towards the end.
But
I
I'm pretty
wasn't
sure
that
it's just
interested.
see, I got Netflix again, so I could always watch it. But I'm just saying that I don't know, like it's not drawing me to it as I think a show would for me. But it's because I
Yeah,
never watched it and I don't know anything about it. So I mean, how
you
could something
might
draw
like
me if I
it.
don't know anything about it?
The only thing that drew me to watch it was I needed something to play in the background while I was doing a bunch of work that was really repetitive, and then it kind of pulled me in because it was actually a pretty good story. Jessie didn't really want to watch it, but then I showed her some of the later episodes when I was done, and she's like, "Okay, this is actually a pretty good story." So, I mean, it's just something if you felt like it. Did you watch Parasite? Parasite was good.
I've told you about Parasite.
That's right. Yeah, I liked Parasite. I've liked every anime you've shown me. Shaman King I've liked the least, but I've liked every anime that you've shown me. I have to say I like Shaman King.
I mean, as I ended here, the reason I even mentioned Shaman King is because for me, it's reminiscent. I liked the idea a long time ago, back when it was on 4Kids, but I
Yeah.
only not recently, like 5, 2 years ago, learned that there was some serious stuff going on with Shaman King, and it didn't get adapted the correct way. So like I always wanted to see. At some point, I was gonna go back to read it, but when I found out that they're doing an anime, I was like, they're gonna redo the anime. I was like, okay. And then the creator said that I'm not gonna let them do it unless they adapt it from my story. I was like, okay. And I found out they were actually adapting. I was like, okay, so they're actually gonna do it the right way. They're gonna give the show the Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood treatment, like for it. Instead of calling it Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, they're just gonna call it Shaman King. So it's like, okay, that's good. So far, I'm enjoying what I've seen. The characters all familiar. Apparently, there's a character who that they changed drastically in the original version of the show, and people didn't like it, and they fixed it here. So I'm actually interested in seeing like what that character is. I think I know who he is because I think I saw an image of him. Um, and ironically, he's black, but uh, I think it's him or not. I don't really know. He hasn't shown up yet either, so I only know what his name is.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll find out later on too. But it's funny. But I guess that we're gonna end it here. We are closing in almost 2 hours. See you guys next time.